What's going on, everybody? This is the Burn Down. Today's episode, we have a very special guest. We have George Rico from Gran Habano Cigars.
If you're into that, which we already know you are, stay tuned because it's the Burn Down.
It's the Burn Down.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Burn Down. Today we have a special episode. We have the great George Rico, CEO of Gran Habano Cigars. So without further ado, please let's welcome this man. George, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you guys. Pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you for joining us. It's
Thanks,
a pleasure to meet you over FaceTime. Hopefully one day we'll be able to meet you in person.
I look forward to that.
Now you're down in sunny Miami, right?
Yeah, it's wonderful weather. 61 degrees right now. Sorry to hear you guys are probably colder than that, but
Yeah, it's about
you're
30.
more than welcome to come down here.
It's a little chilly up here. It's
A little bit.
the main thing is the wind right now. It's a bit breezy, so it feels 15, 20 degrees colder than it actually is, but it's all right. It's winter. It's supposed to be cold.
Are you born and raised from Miami?
No, so I was raised in Miami, but I was born in Colombia.
Wow.
Colombia, okay.
And how old were you when you moved over here?
11.
11. So were you always a cigar guy? Like, we've met some people that have been smoking cigars since they were 8 years old. I mean, did you grow up around cigars or?
Yeah, no, I started smoking cigars probably around 2021, but I've been around tobacco most of my life as a child, going to my grandmother's farms, my family's farms in Colombia, but really in the tobacco industry since I was around 17. I've been working with my father.
Very cool, very cool.
So Gran Habano is obvious, so it's in your family.
Yeah, it's our family brand. It was started in 1997, and we've introduced what you guys know as our product now, our core lines, which is our Corona No. 5, our Habano No. 3, and our Connecticut, which were the original core lines that we introduced back in 2002.
Fantastic.
So what do we have here then? So that was the original line. So are these are obviously an extension.
So what do you got there?
Adding on to that line. So I believe you told me this one was the Persian King Maduro.
So that's would be, from what I'm looking at, that's the Persian King Maduro Toro, that we could call that the Raja. And it's a wonderful medium body smoke. It's Nicaraguan filler binder and wrapper. It's a sun-grown wrapper from Nicaragua. One of the misconceptions that because our farm is in Honduras, that our tobaccos that we use in our cigars is usually Honduran. Actually, our farms are in Nicaragua. So we use all Nicaraguan tobacco, but manufactured in Honduras.
Okay.
For the most part. Then we have Connecticut's and other tobaccos that we use in some of our blends that are from Ecuador. One of the ones here is the U.S. Connecticut with the blue and green. So we have a variety of different types of tobaccos we use, but predominantly it's all Nicaraguan.
So this is so most of them are Nicaraguan puros?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, we're known in the industry for years, being in business for close to 24 years. Here in the U.S., we're known for our blends. And back in the cigar boom, I mean, usually everything was a puro, maybe a mix here and there.
Yeah.
But what made our cigar and why it made it so successful in the industry was that we use blends. So we use Colombian, Costa Rican, Panamanian, Nicaraguan. So we use a lot of different, but the bulk of our blends are usually carry Nicaraguan tobacco in them.
Wow.
Well, I'm partial to Nicaraguan puros, so I'm excited to see what this one's going to taste like.
And then I have over here the Zulu, I believe you.
Zulu?
Zulu? Is that how you pronounce
Yeah,
it?
so that's the Zulu project.
And this was what kind of project? You were breaking up.
Oh, sorry about that. So that's a Zulu project, and that's a cigar that I made roughly around 2011. There was an extension, which is the one you're looking at here. This is the second project that we did, and usually that project with the Zulu is attached to a charity. This one was in conjunction with an artist out of Washington, D.C. named Mas Paz. and he did the artwork, and then
Yeah,
we
let's see
donated
that.
to the orphanage that he was adopted from in Colombia. So it kind of tied in the project really nice.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. I mean, you don't see too often like a cigar sleeve that's very artistic like
So
that.
this is like a work of, I
yeah.
didn't even notice
Yeah.
that when I smoked it
Oh,
the
yeah, look
first
at that.
time.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, look.
Well, yeah, see if we can
There
put
you
That's
go.
what you'll find in the box, but it's a representation of
Oh.
a mother holding a child, believe it or not.
Yeah,
And
I can see it. I can see
there's
it.
a freedom land. Yeah.
I'm so disappointed in myself because when I smoked this a couple weeks ago. I was sitting in here and I was watching some basketball. I was smoking it, and I didn't. I mean, it looked. I saw that there was some artwork, but I didn't actually open it up and
Yeah.
see that it was. Oh, that's so cool.
Sucks to be you, man. I got the artwork and you don't.
All right. Well,
We'll keep it in here. We'll keep it in here.
yeah, we're gonna have to maybe frame that or something.
Yeah.
So, before we continue with the rest of the interview, we obviously have to light up our cigars.
Yeah.
And we have to pour ourselves a drink, which we are. We've been drinking this a lot on the podcast, but for everybody that's watching, we are going again with Montauk Wave Chaser IPA.
Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong with these. So let's spark
it up.
Yeah, cut it, light it, spark it up,
Pour it out, man.
pour it out, talk it out, burn it down.
Boom.
All right,
Let's go.
I'm jealous. All I have is water.
we're back.
So I was asking George before we started the Zulu. So is this a Nicaraguan Puro as well?
So that has a little bit of a combination of Nicaraguan, I think, if I remember correctly, Nicaraguan, Colombian, and a little bit of Costa Rican fillers in that one.
Oh wow.
With the Nicaraguan binder and wrapper. I gotta verify correctly. Off the top of my head, it's been a few years with that blend, but it's a good medium body. Nicaraguan for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you got a lot of different recipes in your head. It's kind of hard to
You
keep
can't
them
remember
all.
them
Can't
all.
remember hand over hand.
Yeah. We have over 40-something blends that we've worked with over the years.
Well, yeah, I remember looking at the catalog when you had sent us the catalog.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm scrolling through and it's page after page. You go, man, that's a lot of blends. I want them all.
We want them all. We want them
But
all.
I remember that
I'm
one.
glad you guys got the cigars to try them out, and hopefully you continue to support the brand. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I mean,
Oh, we love it. Like I said, it's everyone I've had has been good so far.
we've been communicating with Natasha, and she's been very well, and she's been very easy to communicate with, very responsive. So kudos to her. She's getting things
I
done.
appreciate it. So I'll be happy to hear about that.
I remember that cigar, and I actually we were talking about it during our little break, but I actually had some notes on that one because I found it very interesting, the smell, and I had that the wrapper smells like cinnamon pine cones, almost like it reminded me of Christmas.
Christmas time.
It had a very strong smell. I wrote down smooth wrapper on the lips, smooth draw, quick burn, woodsy and pine to start, medium body, a little bit of spice on the finish, and black pepper.
Yeah.
Is what I picked up on that one.
I mean,
Wow, interesting blend.
yeah.
Well, I mean, now that you say, because Nicaraguan, Colombian, and Costa Rican, it makes sense of as why it was there was so many different flavors. Because typically Nicaraguan puros, I mean, sure you know too, is just typically just full, strong black pepper spice
through.
throughout. But it was interesting. I enjoyed it.
No, this might be my favorite one so far. I mean,
Wonderful.
it has a great draw. I always love when the smoke comes out of the top. That means always it's a good sign. It's constructed beautifully. Yeah, look, perfect. So
Yeah. Well,
and,
usually what we do at our factories, I actually draw test every cigar that we make before we finish with the wrapper. And then we actually weigh and draw test every cigar. So that way, for the most part, when we started, people were always surprised about how much tobacco and how heavy our cigars are.
yeah,
But we do a tubular style filler just to maintain the consistency on the draw. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. So
when you say draw test, what is that exactly? If you're doing it every single time.
So we have these machines that you actually put the bunch into it, and it basically grabs the head of the cigar, and it'll draw, and it has a gauge where if it's above a certain number or below a certain number, it's either a light draw or a heavy draw.
Oh wow!
And
that's
then
pretty
those
cool.
are tossed out if they don't match. So yeah.
Wow.
It's probably like I'd imagine it's the suction, like how much pressure it's got to.
Correct. So
Right.
we like to keep it at a certain number in order for it to be consistent and not as heavy for you to enjoy the cigar.
And you do that for the length of the cigar, the whole cigar?
No, so we only do about a quarter of the cigar, but the draw, because it's a bunch, it has a binder, automatically it draws like a regular cigar.
Yeah.
Based on the pressure, how much it would take for you to draw, that's when we either toss them out or they're okay.
That's pretty cool. Because I've heard draw testing before, and I'm like, is somebody sitting there just sucking down cigars? Like,
Yeah, I never heard of that.
that's pretty cool.
No, not at all. That wouldn't be the case. But look, you could Google Draw Masters, and then you'll see the machines that were used. They're small little machines that you put the cigars in, and then that's how you're able to do
Yeah.
that.
I mean, you wouldn't want an individual, because that means someone else touched the cigar with their lips. Well, hold on, don't.
Oh, yeah. Well,
No, that's not.
We know you don't
Here's-
got any. I think you got water. You said so. Salute to you, George. Thank you for
there you go.
coming on the burn down.
Okay. Cheers to Gran Habano.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, that's good. So let's
Get into
pick
it.
one of these questions here. So you said, we talked about how you kind of got started in the industry. You were always around it. It was a family. Gran Habanos is a family company. And you said you started smoking cigars really around 2021. One of the questions we had is, do you remember the first cigar that you've ever smoked?
I did. It was, if I believe correctly, it was a number 3, one of our Gran Habano number 3 cigars, and it was a Robusto originally that I tried. And it was a very good cigar. I mean, it was a little heavier for what I was used to, because, in college I was smoking Splash cloves and things of that. But then when I got into the cigars, I really appreciated it, and it was a different concept, and I fell in love with the whole making cigars, really learning the whole process. And so the first cigar I remember being one of our Robustos.
Did you say cloves?
I'm sorry?
Did you say cloves?
Yeah.
Wow, I haven't heard someone smoke. I mean, when I was younger too, in like high school and college, we used to think we were cool smoking cloves. So
I remember smoking like Swisher Sweets or Backwoods or something like that.
cloves were the black, right? The black.
Yeah. The Splash before then, actually before they became little cigarillos, they were paper. And they looked just like cigars. Like cigarettes, and they changed them to the black paper. But originally, they weren't that way. 16 years ago.
Oh my God, that's
Cloves.
about right.
Come a long way since then.
Yeah, real long way. Where did you go to school?
I went to FIU here in Florida.
Oh, okay. Was that Florida
International.
International?
Yeah, don't they have a basketball team, right?
Yeah, they have a basketball team. I don't know if there's another one. What was the Florida Gulf Coast was the team that made that big run.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's who I was thinking.
Yeah.
of. And what'd you go to school for?
Business.
Business.
Makes sense. And then
Business ethics.
business ethics.
I mean, most of us. I mean, you wouldn't be going to college for business if you weren't. You want to be a CEO of a corporation one day.
Yeah. Did you know prior to college? I mean, you said you've been around cigars really from 17 on, then you really smoked them at 2021. But did you know that after college you were going to kind of take over the family business, so that's why you went in for business?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, I've worked since I was like my senior year in high school, and going. When my dad started really making cigars in Honduras back at that time, years before my older brother was involved in it. And so the case was that it was kind of that was the whole goal with my father starting any business when we came to the States, that the family was going to work together and that we were going to develop a business. And then that's sort of the way I grew up, thinking that whatever I was going to do is what my father was doing.
Wow.
But it's something that I really became passionate in it because there was such a culture around it that I has evolved throughout the course of the years, but it was still very interesting, and it is what it is now. But it was very different 20 years ago, and it was interesting, and I fell in love with it.
Is your father still in the business as well?
Yeah, so my father handles the operations in Central America with the farming and the factory, and I handle the operations here in the U.S. with the distribution, the branding, and the growth of the brand as a whole.
So what do you see for 2020? What's on the horizons for 2020? What are the next big things coming for Gran Habano?
For us, I mean, we're a little bit focused now with the PCA being what it sort of changed a little bit with our trade show. I attended the TPE about a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think, at this point in time, and now PCA is coming up, and then there's a real shift in focus on brands coming out with PCA cigars. So we're looking forward to creating some products that are just going to be at the trade show, which is great. It's a focus of mine for years, and I'm sort of happy that a lot of other companies have started it. I always wanted to be part of it, but I didn't think it was going to be something that it would be a novelty.
Yeah.
But now I think it's going to be a movement this year. So we have two projects that I'm releasing at PCA that are going to be exclusive to PCA. It's going to be like the new La Contra for the Persian Kings.
Okay.
So it's a stronger version of La Contra, a little bit heavier, more peppery, more robust version of La Contra. And then we're also doing a Black Dahlia PCA cigar. So we're going to have two projects that are going to be driven just for PCA members.
And what is PCA? I'm not sure I know what that is.
It's what used to be referred as the IPCPR, which is our trade organization, and it's a premium cigar organization.
Gotcha.
So they changed names?
That's where... I'm sorry?
They changed names? Because I remember it as IPCPR.
Yeah. This last past trade show, they started to shift over into just focusing on premium cigar, where before it was called the International Premium Cigar Association. I think Cigars and Pipes, I think it was.
Yeah.
So now we went to just a premium cigar industry.
I like PCA better than IPCPR.
Yeah, I couldn't even say that analogy. I'm like, it's like spelling Mississippi. You know?
It's so much easier to say PCA.
And
I go back to when it was the RTDA, so retailer trademark. So it's changed. It's evolved over the years with the new landscape of regulation with the federal government.
Wow.
So it's more of a focus now in regards to more premium cigars. In my opinion, I think it was a good idea.
And so staying on, in 2020, I just read a recent article that, I think the FDA is like almost en route to stopping online cigar sales. Have you read up on that? Are you aware of that?
I just got that today. I saw that it was on Half Wheel. I read through it, through the whole listing of what they were going to do. Some of it is positive. Anything really that's regulatory is always stressful.
Yeah.
Because companies like ours, we're still a medium-sized cigar company, still a family-owned business. It just puts a lot more pressure on companies like ourselves as opposed to the bigger corporations, because they have the ability to really pay more of those user fees, all these different costs associated. So I'm always fearful because I love competition. I love the creativity that the cigar industry has had for 20 years.
Absolutely.
And how it's evolved. And I really would hate for that to be stagnated and growth to be really cut short on such a small industry to begin with,
Yeah.
Have you read about that? Have you heard that?
I've read here. Yeah, the same. I got the same gist of it's kind of half good, half bad. There's some things that are good about it and some things so.
What would be some of the good things about it?
Well, I mean, there seems to be some exceptions with our newer products from what I read. I don't know if it's true. Based on cigars, they're above $12. They wouldn't have the same entrance to business sort of scenario where they don't have to go through this really difficult process of introducing a new product.
Got it.
Which the way FDA looks at it is bringing a new drug into the market. Mm-hmm. And for cigars, it's not as complicated as it is. But I would see that bureaucracy would eliminate the creativity of bringing new products onto the market.
Yeah, I just never liked how they categorize cigars under the same umbrella as tobacco as like cigarettes.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's totally different.
If if you look at the history of that, that's where little clothes get tied into that whole thing.
Yeah.
When they did the switch, and they consider themselves little cigars, but they weren't. They were cigarette. It's a whole point of how. So when tobacco gets regulated, unfortunately, cigars, which is such a fraction of the industry, gets sucked into any regulation. And we're totally different. We're for adults. The focus is being for adults, not for children. And there's always that unfortunate situation with vapes, how they created an industry in such a short period of time. So.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that we have pointed out on our podcast before is that with cigars is you don't see kids chain smoking cigars, right? The cigarettes is a big thing, a big problem with the younger crowd is you see them, they see it on TV, I want to be cool, and they start chain smoking left and right, and then it leads to other things. But cigars, you never see a kid, like a 14-year-old kid, like, oh, yo, let's go to the back and smoke a cigar. Like,
imagine seeing a kid, a 14-year-old kid outside of a high school with a cigar.
You don't
in his mouth,
see that, so...
No, I've never seen that. And I mean, we're a luxury item product. We're an industry that really caters more to adults with sort of disposable income. There's a lot of great products out there that are reasonably priced. I think we compete in that. But it's always to, on average, a cigar is between $5 and $8. I mean, just one cigar, you're talking about a pack of cigarettes maybe in New York being $14, but you get 20 cigarettes.
Yeah.
It's more for a different consumer. We're more for a higher end. So we don't compete at all, but unfortunately, the problem with tobacco as a whole is the issue where we get lumped in.
Right.
It's a good point.
So let's go away from the cigarettes and stuff, and let's go in one of these questions here. We've only gotten like 3 questions in. Like I said, we deviate and we digress.
Yeah, I mean, the questionnaire is just like a guide. We don't get.
We got like 3, not even the 3rd question down yet.
Because I'm sure if we were George in person, we would be going off on tangents about many other things.
Well, it happens just because, like you said, an answer, and all of a sudden pops another question. Like, oh, I want to ask that. So, all right, so let's go. What is your favorite size and the favorite strength? So, favorite size, favorite strength, mild, medium, full.
So, if you saw in my catalog, I sort of wrote a story about how I love Lanceros, and I've always been a big fan of Lanceros, and I think there's something very special about that particular size.
My man.
The fact that it's a balance between the construction, the type of materials that you're allowed to have. So I have a love and a passion for Lanceros, but as I've gotten older and realized that time is very limited at some point with smoking a cigar and appreciate it, I shifted more into Coronas, which I was always a big fan. Lately, I've been into 44s, 42s, 46 by 5 and 5/8 Corona Gorda. I love, but I'm very passionate about Lanceros. I love them. It's one of my favorite size. But I'm now shifting in between Coronas and all the different sizes of Coronas that exist. And then blend wise, I'm very much of a person that thinks that a cigar should always have complexity and flavor and depth. So I don't focus, and if you see my flavor profile of how I produce cigars, it's not always in the really over-the-top strength. I try to look more for complexity. And so I'm more of a medium body smoker, but I really like flavor. I like a cigar to stand out that has a lot of depth that changes throughout the course of the cigar. So it's an experience that you really get to have, as opposed to having a linear flavor cigar. So that's where I'm at.
I like that. Well, you and I are in agreement with Lanceros because that is one of my favorite sizes, and I love it because of the fact that all of the flavor gets packed into such a small ring. So the intensity is there. You get a lot more of the wrapper flavor than you would in some of the larger rings. I do appreciate how hard it is to keep Lanceros consistent. And I know that you say you have a draw test, and it's very difficult to roll a Lancero and make it so that it's not overly packed and you don't get a good draw. So I do appreciate how difficult that is. That's why I like it even more. When you get one that's a good draw, I said, wow, okay, this is good draw, great flavor, and it's a Lancero.
Yeah. I mean, Lanceros, for an example, even in Cuba, not everybody makes a Lancero. You have to be a specialized roller where you actually have to be above 7 years of rolling cigars to move on to the next grade where they train you to make a Lancero. So that's what's unique about it. It's not everybody has the capability of making a Lancero that's consistent, that their hands allow it to keep it, structured correctly when you're making a cigar. There's a fine balance of overpacking it. So you have to have a real understanding of how much tobacco you could use. And so it's something that's not everyone can make. And you could get a lot of bad Lanceros out there. And usually they're good blends. They're just manufactured wrong.
Right, just overly packed. So what would be a Lancero from your line that would be like the top line? If somebody's asking, hey, recommend me a Lancero from Gran Habano, what would be the first one?
Well, I got to tell you, the Zulu that you're smoking, the original cigar, for years, for close to 20 years, I would go around peddling Lanceros. And this is back in 2001, 2002, and I'll carry a little bundle. And I would hand it out to people. And I always said, Lanceros are going to be the next thing. These are great cigars. You got to try. And what the Lancero Connecticut and the Lancero Habano and the Zulu was that cigar in that little bundle that I would go around. Wow. So that's what became my private blend that I would hand out to people as my signature cigar when in my early 20s. Going around telling people to smoke my cigars, that would be the one. And then Lanceros caught on. It became something that the industry accepted more. They were around in the 90s, but they made a big splash in the mid 2000s to late 2000s. But I hope to, and I'm not saying it was me only, but I hope I was one of the guys that helped to reintroduce Lanceros in that way.
Yeah, I mean, more and more people I hear are huge Lancero fans, and not that I think they're bad, but I just I haven't got on the train for Lanceros yet. I just think it's the size and the way it feels. You know, I'm more of like a Robusto Toro type of guy. I guess I like a little more girth, if you will. But it's just not my thing. But
you smoked one on here before.
I know it was good, but you know,
I think it's kind of one of those things that you got to really understand the whole dynamics of it with the way the Lancero, how it's balanced. You get 33% of the filler, 33% of the binder, 33% of the wrapper. So they really, and it's a little bit more offset with filler because at the end of the day, the filler contributes a little bit more. But when you get that fine balance of tasting all three of those components, because they all interact with each other, that's what really at that point excites you. But if it burns too hot, it's gonna ruin the whole thing. If you're puffing on it too hard, it's just kind of one of those things that if you get a good one and you could appreciate it, it's gonna wow you.
Yeah, wow. I definitely appreciate the construction and the process that goes in. Just haven't gotten there yet, but I do like the process. How so complicated it is.
So let's do what's next question here.
I had another question. I can't remember what it was. I was thinking about it as we were talking. I've been trying to do more active listening as opposed to ready for the next question.
Well, I got one right here. So besides cigars, what are some of your hobbies?
That's a good one.
Well, lately I picked up doing sprint triathlons. So anything sort of physical, I've always been a fan. In school, I played rugby. I love running. I love driving classic cars. It's kind of been a passion of mine. But with anyone, I have that sort of thing where I love to drink, eat, and smoke. So that's my biggest passion going.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, so I think anything that's high-end, maybe that's my issue.
So you like driving classic cars. What's your favorite classic car?
I gotta be honest. My favorite, I have an Austin Healey, but my favorite car that I drive that I'm very in love since I was a kid was a Land Rover. So I have one of those Land Rover Defenders, but a classic series one, and that's what I love.
I would not have guessed Land Rover.
No.
I'd have guessed some, one of.
I'm thinking like a Corvette, like a 1967 Mustang or some kind of Chevy or something.
I'll tell you, there's one car that I absolutely love, and it's from a show called Lucifer on Netflix. And I think it's a 64 Corvette convertible black. It is a beautiful looking car. And then I looked it up, and it's like this tiny little thing. Like you sit in it, he sits in it, and his head's sticking out like over the.
That's a beautiful car.
I think it's a 60. I think it's a 64, 60. I can't remember, but it's a beautiful. Just it looks like a James Bond car.
Oh yeah,
Like a black, just one of those James Bond spy cars.
those are badass. I remember the question. You said you were, as you said, peddling Lanceros, which I thought was funny. But did you have like a go-to like Habano Zulu or Habano Lancero like sales pitch, or like did you have like a saying that you always said, like that always stuck with people, or always wanted to like express?
Yeah, what was your closer? What was the closing line?
Well, I don't think it was the closing line. I think what it was is that I'll be the only one at these, there's always been like sort of shows that we've done in the industry where consumers come in and we hand out cigars. And I was always that guy that had the long cigar. Being in my 20s, it was kind of odd to see a young guy smoking something that size. So I think from people seeing him, it's like, look, you got to try this. It's really good. And so I was just more like, try my cigar. Because, we were starting out and trying to establish myself in the industry. I wanted really people to see how well we did our cigars, and that was my favorite one. Maybe it just looked odd, but I just loved them. That's all.
Well, I mean, that's what people remember. I mean, seeing an old guy smoke a cigar is something typical people see, but when you see a young guy with a long cigar, they're always like, well, what's that guy up to? What's he doing?
And especially in a time when the long cigars weren't popular.
Yeah, exactly.
So first off, you got a young guy who isn't popular smoking cigars, and then a second thing is the long cigar, which nobody knows about. They're probably like, who the hell is this guy?
What is this guy doing?
Yeah.
Obviously, I would assume your father is a huge inspiration to you, and growing up in the business world. But do you have any other inspirations or people you look up to, mentors?
Well, it's funny. I think I get a little bit of everything from everyone that I ever meet. One of the things that I like to do is to talk to as many people as possible. And I always, sort of do like an interview kind of thing with them. But I try to learn from people as much as possible. So throughout the process of my travels and meeting people, I think everyone is an inspiration because there's so much stories out there and the people contributed to making me who I am. And it's always been very interesting how people are willing to share what they know, whether there's a guy that is a mechanic and I ask him how to do something, to a guy that, might be a physicist and I met them, So every time I meet anyone, I always just ask them a million questions. That's sort of my thing. But they all contributed to who I am in my way of thinking. So I look up to everyone because everyone has something to give you at every time. You can always learn from people.
That's a good way to look at it.
That's a great way to look at it. I mean, I think Justin, I can speak for Justin as well, is we kind of have the same outlook. We meet different walks of life everywhere we go, and we always try to take at least something away from the interesting people that we meet. So,
which is actually one of the things that we have talked about on this show is that the cigar community inside of cigar lounges, you can go in there and you can have a business guy, big executive, walks in with a 3-piece suit, sits down and have a cigar. And then you could have, a construction worker walks in and he's, got his gig on, sits down, have a cigar. And then you could have a school teacher walk in and sits down, and you get 3 different people from 3 different walks of life, and they all sit down and have a conversation over a cigar. And it's friendly no matter which lounge you go into, and you just start talking to people. And that's when, like you said, you get molded by different experiences.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, that's why I really enjoy the cigar industry, because it's an industry, just like you mentioned, that you meet everyone from every walk of life, and it's just really interesting to see how it sort of interconnects at a cigar shop.
Yeah,
so crazy.
So we know that. So I'm sure you've heard. We've talked about this. That Pro Cigar just passed, right? And the next big show that we actually are both going to is Cigar Fest in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Is Gran Habano going to be there?
Yeah, we're there every year. We participated in the last 12 years, I believe. I think we started doing like the 3rd or 4th one. That's when we started. Because I think they're close to their 19th or 20th year. I don't remember when the first one was.
Yeah, I remember getting Gran Habano cigars.
Yeah.
My very first time like interacting with cigars, my very first year at Cigar Fest, I forgot which one it was. It was the Gran Habano, like I think it's a like 2002 edition. It was like a really
It's our vintage, so we do exclusive for them.
yeah. Oh, so it's exclusive for Cigar Fest.
Yeah, and we do it for what's now Cigars International. We do an exclusive with one of our blunts to them with that cigar.
Yeah.
I do remember that one. Does that have a red?
It's very artistic. It's white. It's red. It's gold.
Does it have a cedar sleeve on it?
Yeah.
It does, right? Okay.
Because I always say, like, when I was a kid, I was always attracted by football teams with nice-looking colors. Or if I liked the cars because it was yellow. And, again, I guess I still have that child mentality in me because when I got that cigar 3 years ago, I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is a cool band. I wonder if this is a good cigar.
You like the bands, yeah.
I'm big on the band. So it obviously made a lasting impression on me. So
I mean, look at the one you're smoking right now. It doesn't get any more unique than that.
no, exactly. So I'm a big...
Appreciate them. I hope to see you guys there. It's coming up at the end of May. April.
We'll be there. We're going to
be there.
stop by the booth. We'll say hi. That's when we'll finally be able to meet him in person.
Are you going to be... You'll be there personally?
Yeah, I go every year.
Oh, well, now we'll know who you are now. That's going to be awesome.
What's funny is that we've probably met you before because we've been going for the last 5 years or so.
3 or 4 years.
And if you've been there, we've probably walked right to your booth. You've handed us a cigar, and we didn't even know it. But now,
yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's kind of one of the unique things about the cigar industry. There's a lot of different players that have been around a long time, and little by little, you start to really kind of focus on brands and appreciate what they are. So I'm glad to hear that.
That's awesome. That's so funny how things come full circle.
right?
It's such a small world. It's crazy.
So what else you got? What do you got on the list? I'm seeing if we missed anything here.
I came up with some other things I wanted to ask, and I can't. So you're living in Miami, and are you a Miami Dolphin fan, a Miami Heat fan? Are you a sport fan?
I'm a Miami Heat fan. Having come to the U.S., my family first moved to New Jersey for a period of time, and then we went back to Colombia and came back to Miami. So I've always actually been a Jets fan. First football game I ever went to.
Let's go.
So it's kind of one of those things that, it's just kind of stuck with me. And then when I moved down to Miami, I was never a fan of the Dolphins, unfortunately.
Let's go. Love it.
I couldn't love Dan Marino for anything. I just didn't think they were that good of a team. But, I respect them. I just don't like them. That's
Jets fan.
Let's go. Because I bleed green as well. So it's finally good to hear. I mean, you know how it is.
Well, I got to tell you, it's tough living in Miami being a Jets fan.
I can imagine. It's like being a Miami Dolphin fan. My buddy's a Miami Dolphin fan up here, and everyone rags on him for being a Dolphins fan. And I'm like,
I only wear my jersey at home when the games are going on. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like wearing a Boston Red Sox jersey in New York or like at a Yankee Stadium. You got to be careful where you wear those things.
Well, I don't think people get upset as much when you're doing it in New York or Boston, as an example. Maybe Boston. I know those guys are a little tough, but Miami is just the same. I mean, they really just have a hatred. I don't understand why. The team sucks.
They're just like us. We haven't won in a few years, so it's.
Hey, listen, I bleed blue, so I know how you feel this past season.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of interesting because you bleed green, I bleed blue, and he's smoking a blue and green.
See, full circle, man.
I'm telling you,
full circle.
It's a good way to tie it in.
Have you been to the new Miami Stadium?
Yeah. No, actually, when they did the remodel, I haven't been yet. I haven't been. The last time I went was for a concert or something like that, so I haven't been. Oh, no, to a Colombian soccer game. That's what it was.
So being a Miami Heat fan, you probably loved when LeBron came, won you a couple titles, and then left, right?
You know what? I thought it was a good time. It was a great time for the city. We had already won a couple. I think it was one or maybe just one with Shaq and
D Wade.
Yeah, and then LeBron and Bosh coming in. I thought that was exciting. I'm really excited about the team right now. I think they're a phenomenal team. Pat Riley does a really good job.
Yeah.
And
you guys have that kid from Kentucky, right? What's his name? Tyler Hero.
I believe, yeah. And so, I think we have a chance, and they built a really good team. But when LeBron was in town, I thought it was very exciting because I think the Heat finally made it to another level as a team nationally.
Yeah.
And just like what he did with the Cavs, it just elevated that team. I think it elevated Miami as a competitor.
No doubt.
Yeah, he definitely did that with cities. Whichever one he goes to, it boosts
the economy.
It brings up the city because everybody, he's the greatest player on the planet. So everybody comes up and you have the greatest player on your team, and he boosts the morale of the city.
No doubt. I was just I was in Miami 2 years ago for. I took my girlfriend and I to Miami and Key West, and that was my first time being in Miami. But boy, I love being down there. It was a fun town.
I've yet to go.
Oh God, I mean, it is fun down in Miami. I love it. I love it down there. We went to Miami. We stayed in Miami for a night, and then I rented a convertible and I drove down to the Keys, which was.
Oh, that's the best thing to do. I mean, if you're ever in Florida, you got to come to Miami. You got to do a little bit of the nightlife. You got to eat. And then that drive to Key West, to the Sunset Bar, it's just a really, really nice trip. I recommend it. In a convertible, that was the best way to do it.
It was a big, loud, yellow Mustang. I couldn't be any more louder. And the drive was beautiful. Not a cloud, not a rain in sight, and it was just a beautiful 3-hour drive. Just blasting music. Oh man, it was. Were you
blasting Big Willie style?
I was blasting everything.
Welcome
I was blasting
to Miami.
Oh. That is obviously one of the first songs I played in there. It's actually. I think my girlfriend might have a video of it when we pulled out of the airport. I think that was like the first song I played. I was planning it for years. But
been planning it for years.
Exactly. What was I just gonna say though? I forgot the name of the restaurant in Miami, but it is, it's a pretty upscale restaurant, but we ordered like this meal and it came on a lawnmower. It's like
a lawnmower.
Yeah, it's like a restaurant that has like these crazy like desserts and like entrees. They come out like if you get like a creme brulee, it comes out like in a large like a golden dollar bill or something like that, and you gotta use the heat in a
golden dollar bill.
Something crazy, and I forgot the name of the restaurant, but it was like this special.
You gotta get me the name of it now.
I'll ask my girlfriend, and she'll know, and I'll shoot you a text. But it was like, oh, the special is this.
I didn't know about that. I gotta go try it.
It's crazy. It's like I think it was like two like steaks, and it's like all this, all these.
Comes out on a lawnmower.
It comes out on a lawnmower. I mean, it's a lawnmower, but it's obviously not revving. They have a speaker, and they turn the speaker on, and it's a lawnmower revving.
It's like a miniature lawnmower. Or no?
He was telling me that it's Barton G.
Barton G. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yep, Barton G. That's exactly what it is. Yep. This is exactly what it is. And the girl was like, yeah, you come down on the lawnmower, and then you can hear it from like all the way from the kitchen. It's like, and they come out, and it takes up the whole table. Like I had to it's a legit lawnmower, and you're like looking at the next, like your girlfriend, whoever across, and it's a lawnmower right in the center of your table.
Dude, that's crazy.
It was awesome. Awesome.
That's interesting. I have to go through that. I mean, that's really an entrance for a meal. I don't know if I want to eat it after that, but I think it'll be exciring just to see it.
Order it just to see it.
That's how they're known. They're known for like the wow factor for all the stuff that they do. Like they have there's so many different things. I remember like something with popcorn and a popcorn machine and like a movie theater with they have like all these different crazy entrees and desserts that come around these crazy setups. It's really wild. You definitely would enjoy it.
Wow.
Yeah. Barton G. That's exactly the name.
Barton G. All right. Well, what do we got? Let's see. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, guys.
I think that's going to do it. So we are at... Yes, we're coming up just a little bit less than an hour.
Yeah, but I mean,
give or take
like 10 minutes or so with setting up and talking.
A couple technical difficulties, but listen, George, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. We appreciate you taking out the time of your day to come and hang with the Burn Down.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
Excellent, and I appreciate you guys having me on. If you guys, most of your fans, if they want to check up and see what I'm up to. Gar Cigars and Instagram and Facebook. You could find me or ghcigars.com. or Gran Habano at Facebook and Instagram as well. You could Gran Habano Cigars. You could find us there.
Absolutely.
Perfect. We're going to put all those up right here.
Yeah, we'll put all the links up for you.
All the links up for everybody.
Appreciate it. And thank you for letting me be able to be on your show and sort of tell people about my product. I'm very passionate about it, and I hope that they get to try it and really enjoy what we're doing.
Absolutely, man. And if we're ever in Miami, we'll know who to go. And if you're ever in New York, you know where to find us, man.
I'll hit the lawnmower.
There
you got to take a picture of it or something and send it, because I'm telling you, it's an experience.
I'm gonna make a point to go there because I didn't even know it existed. Now I got to do it.
It's in Miami, man. You can't miss it. Barton G.
You got it.
Okay. I look forward to it. So thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thanks for having me on the show once again.
Thanks,
George. Take care.
Cheers to you, brother, man. Thank you.
Bye-bye.